Hey everybody, welcome to Critical Thoughts. I'm your host, Braxton Smith, and joining me today is Jesus, back by popular demand. Want to say hello?
How's it going, everyone?
Yeah, so, it's October 8th, 2018, and today we're talking about the McGregor fight, or I don't know, something to that effect. It's just really up to Jesus on this one. He was feeling very passionate about talking with us about some of the bigger pictures things he's been seeing here lately with the UFC. So without further ado, I'll let you take it away from here.
All right, thanks. So, we were talking about this before you started recording, so I guess I'm just going to rebrief past what my point is. And it's kind of difficult to have a point because I don't know that anybody, I think I care, right? But it's like, it's like I'm not an important voice and I'm not necessarily the most knowledgeable person about the UFC. So I'll get that. I like people to understand that. But I feel like I'm a guy that understands right and wrong. And once I see that, then I'm calling it, So here's my problem. Okay, so a few years ago, there was a big match between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. And Nate Diaz won that match. Now, because Nate Diaz is such a good guy, he immediately allowed Conor McGregor to get back into the octagon with him, gave him a rematch. Conor McGregor won that fight by decision. Now, this is completely speculative and probably pointless at this time to say, but you can ask a lot of people on the Nate Diaz side that watched that fight that went to decision, and there are people that believe to this day that Nate Diaz won the second match.
Well, if they're on Nate Diaz's side, of course they're going to say that, but it's really ultimately up to the judges who are supposed to be impartial. So,
well, what I'm saying is that objective observation of a fight is kind of like a murky thing, right? So, if I'm watching a fight, right, and I see a guy. Like, nobody gets knocked out, nobody gets choked out. It's kind of like a gray area of deciding who wins and who loses, So when you get down to that level of technicality, or how are you really splitting it, especially if it's so close? So, I don't know that you can be impartial. It's almost like flipping a coin is what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that if you were an objective observer of the Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 2, and you're asked to pick who won this fight, it's going to be almost impossible for you to determine who won because they both did well. I'm not saying Conor McGregor wasn't dominating in rounds, but I'm saying that towards the end, Nate Diaz started coming back with some serious punches, and they're...
All right, well, let's not get too lost in the details about how the match goes and how split it was. Like, what was the overarching message, I guess? Like, let's work towards...
Okay, so the point of this podcast is that Nate Diaz is being treated unfairly, and Conor McGregor is being rewarded for losing. So it's like, what kind of a business model rewards losers and... tosses winners to the curb, So the point is that, so there's some more technicalities in here. So
I could answer that one though. That one actually needs an answer because it is a question that's being asked. How could someone that loses, it's like Conor McGregor. He's not undefeated like some of these guys, like the guy he fought, for example, Khabib last night or night before. He was undefeated.
Right.
McGregor's had his losses, but one of the biggest aspects to it, like I was talking with one of my buddies, Dennis, about this. He was talking about George St. Pierre, who he would argue is one of the best fighters to ever step into the ring. But for some reason, he never had these multi-million-dollar fights like McGregor had because the demand just simply wasn't there. He was, logically speaking, he was very precise, cunning, and calculated with everything he did. But there wasn't really a personality about him that the fans were crazy about. It's like, why do fans watch wrestling, for example? It's 100% the personality. But with MMA, there's a little bit of personality to it. Granted, most of it is how successful you are, but a lot of it has to do with the personality as well. And Conor is quite a personality.
So I'm not nearsighted on this. I don't have blinders to what you're saying. I think what I'm saying is that there is right and wrong. And I understand that business models should be based on making profit. But look at it like this, right? You have a fighter that loses a fight and gets a rematch, and then goes to the boxing world and loses another match. And then last night, this guy loses again. He loses again, and immediately they're already talking about his rematch. Now, the point for me is that when fighting, the evolution of fighting in our society, in our culture, is about a dispute between two men, and I guess women too, but from my point of view, historically or classically, it's two men who have a dispute, and that is who is the greatest, and they're gonna find out. And they get in the ring together, and they duke it out, they give out their best, and one of them comes out victorious. That person gets rewarded by history. But we're living in a world, which I don't necessarily completely disagree with, because if it creates jobs and it gives people something to do, that's fantastic. But at a certain point, I'm asking ethically, Dana White should realize that Nate Diaz deserves his rematch. It's completely unfair to think that you can basically make a fool of yourself, and that's what we're elevating. But Nate Diaz here barely lost the fight. He's just trying to get his rematch to find out, going back to that classical thought of men versus men, proving who's the best. That's all he's asking for.
Yeah, best 2 out of 3. Because at this point, that's something McGregor's constantly touting, and so there's nobody like me, and it sounds like Diaz would be a very interesting match. A rematch with Khabib would be very interesting. But we do have to remember too, McGregor's been out of the game for like 2 years so far as MMA. The last fight he was in, he was boxing. But you got to give him credit for that. I mean, he was boxing. He wasn't doing MMA, so I wouldn't really hold that loss against him so far as his MMA career. But what I hold against him is I'm not anti Conor McGregor. Basically, I'm just on the cheer squad for freaking Nate Diaz, man. And I think that he's being treated unfairly, man. Now, Dana White's position, he's already said, hey, I gave him all sorts of fights. Nate Diaz obviously felt, definitely more passionate about it than I do, because it's his life. But he wanted a rematch, and he didn't get it. So, it's kind of like a hissy fit kind of scenario. But it's not like the guy's not a victim. He's not out saying, hey, this is he's not out there doing some crazy thing to prove his point. He's just, at some point, you have to hold true to your values, and that might not necessarily be the best thing for the UFC, right? I mean, I'm sure if Dana White could fill a card and put Nate Diaz versus X person, right, then that's great. I mean, that's great for Dana White. He wants to do that. But from Nate Diaz's perspective, it's like, wait a second. So how is it possible that I'm basically, from Nate Diaz's perspective, I'm better than this guy. I'm better than Conor McGregor, yet his career is skyrocketing, and here I am having to go back get in the back of the line, starting with these guys who obviously are not my equal. I mean, so if you're telling Nate Diaz, if Dana White is telling Nate Diaz, I'm going to give Conor McGregor all these cool ass fucking fights, even though he didn't prove he was better than you, but now you have to go to the back of the line and you have to fight these guys that are not even on your level. It's like, that's insulting. I mean, that's cut and clear for me. Yeah, actually, sorry, my daughter somehow, I guess she knows how to open doors now. She just barged in. But yeah, if I had to, I guess, apply a little bit of critical thinking to this one, I would say it's all about the marketing, man. It's like I did a post a while back. I don't think it was on Critical Thoughts. I think it was actually on ANCAPs versus Monarchs. And I was asking the question, what brand people get? Because at the time, between Bose and Beats, because they're two separate headphones, right? You have Beats, which is like an inferior product. At the time, they've improved, but at the time they were an inferior product, but they were marked up big time, and they had good marketing. Bose was objectively superior. It was not only just better, it was also better for the dollar. But people still buy Beats way more than they do Bose. So again, I think it just comes back to marketing, man. It's like, you could have someone like Diaz that whoops ass, and then it's just like, if you can't market it though, then it's just like, it's for the sport. It would be good for the sport to promote Diaz, but so far as actually like making the money, which is, a lot of what this is about.
Yeah.
And Conor McGregor's an epitome of it. The guy's always walking around in like $1,000 suits. He's like obviously just in it for the money anymore himself. I don't even think he has a heart in the fight anymore. It's like, it's just all about the money for him. So as long as the marketing's there, that's what comes first. Not ability, not, I guess, ethics. Some of the ethics kind of goes away with it too. Is if profits. If the profit's there.
I think that every business model should have some sort of level of ethics to it, and I think that this is where I was yesterday when I texted you. I brought up a kind of a race element to it, and it's like that. There's a sense that because Nate Diaz is sort of this Chicano guy from California, and he's like. What is that? But Conor McGregor is this sort of white Irish guy, like there's a kind of like a cultural identity to it, like people like Conor McGregor because he's a white Irish guy, and Nate Diaz not. Are we still? Sorry, something happened.
Yeah, we got a little bit of a flash, but yeah, we're still live. We're still recording.
Okay, cool. So I guess it's a hard argument to make because I don't think people dislike Hispanics, but I think like right now we're underrepresented, man. And then like, the whole, I don't want to get into the politics of this. I'm just going to make a comment. So just please try to not hold it against me, but like the whole kids in detainment centers, et cetera, there's like a kind of a bad reputation for Hispanics right now. And I feel the Irish overlap that historical context with Mexicans, but it's like, like the fight last night, Khabib versus Conor McGregor. People don't understand is that there was a lot of Russian-Irish tension, man.
Oh yeah.
Because you have Conor McGregor calling this guy disrespecting his family, his religion, his way of life, and it made it culturally personal, man. It's like about like, this is my identity, these are my people. And so like what I'm trying to say is not that Mexicans are some sort of victim of a big machine. I'm saying that Nate Diaz is a Mexican American, right? And what you're basically saying is that when it comes to the interest of representation for Mexican Americans, it comes second to this Irish guy. So like, why? How is that fair? And I know that the obvious answer is always going to be, the capital interest, right? Like, well, Conor McGregor sells, but for me, it's like, well, why can't Nate sell? I feel like if you made Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor 3. I think that would be a blowout pay-per-view. Everybody wants to watch that fight, and honestly, I don't think it's completely about the capital. I think that Conor McGregor knows that it's not in his best interest to get his ass kicked, and then then he's gonna look like a pussy, and like, what is that gonna do to his career? So now
he picked a fight with a 26-0, now 27-0 Khabib. The other day, that's that's not necessarily pussyfooting there. That's like that was definitely could be a career ender, and in all likelihood that might be it for him. I don't think so, but I mean it's a very real possibility. But I would say I wanted to comment earlier though on the racial overtones of it. I think that's something obviously we try to dodge so far as critical thoughts goes. But I will say I think everyone's kidding themselves if they don't act like they don't tend to lean towards like say for example McGregor. I would cheer for him. Being that the one thing I have in common with him is Irish heritage. I'm like, yeah, hey, I guess that's racially motivated. But, if he were fighting Nate Diaz, and, Nate Diaz is Mexican American, I mean, I'm American first, so obviously I'm going to be pulling for Nate. It's like just the other, that was actually one of the fights that was cracking me up. I got super excited. Lewis versus Volkov. Did you see that fight? It was like the Russian and American dude were facing down.
No, I gave a previous disclosure too that I'm not the most knowledgeable UFC guy either. But no, I didn't watch that match.
Well, he was the guy, and this is what cracked me up because like I got really excited because he was losing at first, and I was kind of concerned. I was thinking like this guy ain't got a chance in hell, but he did like some drunken boxing basically and came back, countered, knocked the dude out, and I lost it. And then like he went on there and they were interviewing him, and they're like, so what was going through your head during the fight? And he was like, well, I got orders straight from the president to whoop that Russian's ass, and that's what I did. Oh man, dude, the crowd just lost it. Like, so I mean, like naturally, if people act like they don't take their nationality or their heritage into account when choosing who they're wanting to root for, I think they're kidding themselves. But personality has a lot to do with it too. And I know McGregor's more of like a showman, but I think honestly, I think he is kind of a dickhead. But
and I mean, they're all dickheads, man, because they've got a lot to prove. I mean, when you go into the UFC, I mean, wow, you're on a stage that's never before been seen. Anybody in the world can join. We're talking about, and these kids are just like these poor kids that just know like their style of fighting from their country or their region in the United States, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna learn how to do this, and then it's amazing to see how it evolves. And the thing about the whole Irish versus Mexican thing is that what upsets me so much is that the Irish and the Mexican share so much in common, man. The immigration thing, a lot of prejudice towards both of us. Kind of this resilient, hardworking, family-oriented Catholic culture.
Ultimately,
adopted also
into
likes
the
to drink
community.
a lot.
Yeah, that too.
And it's interesting. Like even when there used to be these Irish guys that lived in Mexico, and during the Mexican-American War, there were Irish people on the Mexican side. Obviously, I'm not pro that, but what I'm saying is that there's obviously roots that I'm not going to say anything negative about the Irish, but what I will say is that like it's completely disrespectful for me, man. I think if something like that were happening to Conor McGregor, I think that people would throw it into question. People would be upset. People would be like, why? It's because he's Irish, like, is that the problem? I think that people would say that.
There's really not a precedence for that, though. I haven't seen any situation like that. I think it's now starting up, being that there is now the pendulum swung the other way, and now there's certainly a lot of people calling out discrimination against, say, white people, for example. That is just now happening, but there's not like necessarily a history of people saying, like, seriously saying, did you make that decision because I'm white? Like, nobody really, or let alone Irish, like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess for the Irish are past that point in their history. Now the Irish is looked as, like upper citizen, first class.
Yeah, they fully assimilated. I think too, so far as like the Mexican or Hispanic population, I think most of them do assimilate, and unfortunately in certain places like your what do they call those, the cities in California, the refuge cities or something. I forget what they're called, but those are setting situations up where it doesn't really allow for easy assimilation. And I think you're going to have pockets of areas where the cultures don't really blend in with America and into the melting pot. You get like these pockets.
Well, it's like the Chinese did it too, but it works. It works, like, it's like there's little Chinatowns, and like the Chinese find a way to be in the United States, but somehow
not really a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey man, we're coming up on 20 minutes, so let's just get in some last thoughts and wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess do I go or do you go, or how does that?
That's you, man. This is your subject, so I'm gonna let you get the final thoughts in, make my comments, and close it out.
Okay, last thoughts. Nate Diaz beat the shit out of Conor McGregor. Match 1. He debatably lost the second match. Conor McGregor has a stellar career. Nate Diaz is to the side of the curb. Nate Diaz, when he gets on the stage, on the octagon, he's representing Mexican Americans all over the country. So it's unfair, it's unethical for him not to have the opportunity to have a Nate Diaz Conor McGregor 3. And that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, well, I don't have too much to attach onto that other than, yeah, we definitely deserve a best 2 out of 3, as with most tiebreakers, right? So we're at a tie-breaking moment with this one. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I don't even know if Conor's going to want to fight again after this one, but I don't know. We'll see, man.
Maybe there'll be a Nate Diaz Khabib fight. That would be interesting.
Yes, absolutely. If Khabib gets to fight again, because that whole after fight thing he did, I don't know, man.
Well, I heard too he was going to retire. Somebody, I was watching Joe Rogan, and a guy much more knowledgeable than me said that Khabib is done anyways.
Yeah,
so maybe that little thing he did after, though. Did he hit some of the audience, or what the hell did he do?
He was going after someone in McGregor's team. He was either attacking his manager or like someone in his team or something. He like jumped like from the gate and like basically drop kicked from the top ropes, if you will.
Wow.
And then he had 2 of his guys jump Conor after the fight too, though, like while they're all in the ring and the chaos is going down. Yeah, one guy jumped in and Conor damn near knocked his ass out, and then another guy snuck up on him and he kind of deflected him, and then they got all split up. It was craziness, but yeah, I don't
that's insane.
Dude, it would make an excellent promotional, like, oh, there's so much bad blood here, we have to resolve this. I don't know.
It looks like Nate Diaz's career is just gonna keep getting tossed to the curb, man. That's fucked up. Fucked up, man.
He's just gotta do something wild, man. He's gotta like kamikaze his car
crazy, into something. I'm telling you, this is what I'm doing right now. What I'm saying, this is what Nate Diaz needs to be doing, man. He needs to rally up the race, man. It needs to be. I mean, I hate this. I know there's a negative side to the victim empowerment, but when you get an identity like that, then you get people to rile up with you, like, hey, represent Mexican Americans in this country, or we're fucking not watching UFC or something, It'll make Dana White go like, I better listen to these guys, I think if he made it about that, he'd have a better shot at getting back in the octagon against the fighters he wants to fight.
Yeah, that might work, but like I said, I think it'd be a little more effective if he, like, I don't know, like crashed his car into like Conor's car or something crazy. Like, it just seems like you got to get over the top, man. You got to get ridiculous. Yeah. It's like Conor throwing that dolly through Khabib's tour bus. It's just like you just got to take it another level of crazy, basically, and that's apparently that's what people want, man. They're addicted to outrage and outrageous things. But anyways, that's about all the time we got for now. So, thanks for coming on, and thank you everybody for tapping into Critical Thoughts, breaking through the white noise to bring the media that matters, and occasionally shoot the shit.